Hey everybody, I'm Negin Farsad. Hello. Thanks so much for coming here tonight. This is the story of Bijan and Manijeh, which is also the story adapted for Song of the North, which you'll hear more about later on. Here we go. An infestation of wild boars had ruined cultivated lands in Armenia and decimated their herds. Unable to cope with the savage beasts, petitioners came to Iran to seek the assistance of King Khosrow. He took pity on them and challenged his brave company of knights. Who among my knights volunteers to rid my subjects of the wild boars that plague them? Bijan said to the king, I may be young in years, but I am a seasoned warrior. I shall wipe out these beasts. Am I not the son of Giv, the destroyer of armies? Khosrow entrusted the mission to him and said, The king who has a knight like you will never fear the enemy. A knight named Gorgin was appointed to accompany Bijan as a guide. The two embarked on their mission in high spirits, taking falcons to hunt partridge and pheasant and cheetahs to catch mountain sheep and wild ass. As they approached the thicket of boars, they heard it heaving with the sound of the unseen beasts. Bijan suggested that his companion collaborate in the hunt by accompanying him into the woods. This did not sound fair to Gorgin. This is not my business. You are the one who took the kingly gifts to exterminate the boars of Armenia. I'm only a lonely guide. Offended by this remark, Bijan tore into the thicket alone, holding a single dagger. A large swine attacked him, slashing his armor with its tusk, but he stabbed it and cut off its head. He then slaughtered the entire herd and returned to his camp with a sack full of tusks. He said he would present them as a trophy to the king. Gorgin pretended he was happy about the success of his companion, but his heart was dark with evil thoughts. He knew that if Bijan returned in triumph, everyone would learn of his refusal to assist in the hunt, which would diminish him in the eyes of the king and the knights. Swine tusks are hardly a good idea for a royal gift, he told Bijan. I have a better suggestion. There is an annual Turanian festival that is about to commence in a gorgeous meadow not far from here. King Afrasiab's daughter, Manijeh, presides over the festivities in the company of 100 of her elegant attendants. Don't you think capturing a few of these beauties for the king's harem would make for a better trophy than a heap of worthless tusks? Bijan was fascinated by the descriptions of the festivity and decided to make the one-day journey to the lush plain where it would be held. Wishing to go to the event alone, Bijan donned his favorite golden crown, decorated with the feather of a bearded vulture, earrings that he had received from his king, and a bracelet that was a gift from his father. Then he fastened the golden buckle of his belt and rode his black stallion to the festival grounds, where he dismounted under a cypress tree to rest. Princess Manijeh spied him from her pavilion. Smitten by the handsome knight, she sent forth her lady-in-waiting with this command. Go to that young man and find out who he is. Find out why he has come this way and invite him to honor us with his presence, for I have never seen another man more handsome than he. Manijeh's emissary went to Bijan and conveyed her mistress's message. The dashing paladin replied, My fair lady, my name is Bijan, the son of Giv and a knight of Iran. I came here to rid the locals of the plague of wild boars, and I have succeeded. I have heaps of boar tusks as proof. The reason I came further was to catch a glimpse of the beauteous daughter of Afrasiab. I will offer you a crown, a belt, and earrings of gold if you lead me to her. She took this message back to her mistress and sang Bijan's praises. Manijeh sent her back with this message. Rejoice, for you have found what you have come here to seek. Come to me this instant and fill my dark life with the light of your presence. The lady-in-waiting led the young knight to the princess's pavilion. As he entered her chambers, Manijeh embraced him and graciously suggested that he might undo his ceremonial belt and be at ease. Why are you marring your handsome visage by this formal outfit?" she asked. "You have no enemies here. Eat and drink and be merry as our guest of honor." As Bijan sipped fine wine served in crystal chalices, he was overcome by the joy of being in the company of the seductive Manijeh. For 3 days and nights they ate and drank to the sound of skillful musicians until sleep and inebriation overcame them. But the young lovers had a sense of melancholy, knowing the time of their departure was approaching. The princess of Turan found herself unable to let her handsome companion go. She had attendants lace his drink with a soporific substance. When the potion took effect, she ordered her attendants to wrap the sleeping Bijan in soft sheets and place him in her litter, which was carried atop an elephant. She hid him under a blanket and arranged the trip so they would enter the capital of Turan at night. She spirited her beloved man into her quarters at the heart of Afrasiab's palace. Bijan woke to find himself still in the embrace of the lovely Manijeh. Frightened to be without a weapon in enemy country, he cursed Gorgin for ensnaring him in such a trap. Manijeh put his mind at ease, saying, "Don't worry, my love, over what has not happened yet. Be merry, for the future is no more real than the wind. There is time for pleasure and a time for war. Let us fully enjoy the time we have together." Bijan surrendered to Manijeh's temptations. At her command, beautiful girls from every corner of the earth entertained the couple with their songs and music for the remainder of the day and many more days and nights that came and went. All went well until the gatekeeper at Manijeh's palace heard the rumors that a stranger was being kept in the princess's quarters. After investigating the matter and learning the identity of the secret visitor, he went to the king, afraid for his life. "Permission to report," he said, "that His Majesty's daughter has been hiding an Iranian knight in her chambers." Afrasiab was outraged. He would have acted precipitously had it not been for the advice of a wise counselor who enjoined him to probe the matter first. Afrasiab turned to his brother Garsivaz and said, "Fate torments me with disobedient children. Go to Manijeh's palace and investigate this sordid business. If you find an intruder, bind and bring him to me immediately." Garsivaz surrounded Manijeh's palace with 300 soldiers. But when they tried to enter, they found all the doors locked. Garsivaz tore the main entrance door off its hinges and burst in to find 300 servant girls with instruments and chalices of wine surrounding the presiding princess of Turan and her special Iranian guest. When Bijan saw the intruders, he jumped to his feet in great anguish. "How can I defend myself without my horse and weapons?" he thought. "Now only God can help me." He pulled out the dagger he always carried in his boot and addressed Garsivaz. "I am Bijan, the son of Give. None will lay hands on me unless his body has tired of the company of his head, nor will anyone see my back in fight. You know the reputation of my warrior clan. Many of your men will die by my dagger, and yet this could be avoided if you spare my life and advocate my cause before the king." Garsivaz knew that the Iranian paladin meant what he said, so he pretended to agree to his conditions. Thus the young knight was bound and brought to Afrasiab. "Greetings to the king," said Bijan. "If you ask me why I am here, I will say I did not come of my own accord. Nor is anyone to be blamed for my presence at your palace. I came to Armenia from Iran on a boat hunting mission from my king. I lost a falcon and followed it until I fell asleep under a cypress tree. The genie spread its wings over me and spirited me away. Then we flew over a Turanian caravan with an elephant on which litter had been fixed. The beautiful lady was asleep in the litter. The genie invoked the devil's name, dropped me in the litter, and recited an incantation over the lady to keep her from waking. That is how I entered your palace, without my volition or the awareness of the Princess Manijeh. I have not offended you. Your daughter is innocent of this affair. I blame the accursed genie for everything that has happened." Your luck has run out, replied Afrasiab. You came here to spread mischief and make a name for yourself. Now you stand before me with shackled hands and tremble like a woman. Worst of all, you are trying to save your skin by a string of outlandish lies. Now, listen to a sober assessment, great king, said Bijan. Boars and lions fight with their tusks and claws, and warriors need their swords and maces to fight. I am disarmed, and my hands are tied. To examine my mettle, let his majesty provide me with a horse and a mace. I shall take on 1,000 Turanians and win. Afrasiab was incredulous. He turned to Qarsivat and asked, Can you believe that this devil of a man thinks I'm obliged to provide him with the means of glorious combat so that he can kill my men? Does he suppose he hasn't done enough evil already? What else can we expect from these dishonorable Iranians? Take him out and hang him from the gallows. Let this be a lesson to those who covet what is ours. As they dragged Bijan out to the gallows, he cried out, I don't complain of my fate if an early death is written for me. I'm afraid of what the knights of Iran will say when they find out that I was hanged with a body unscathed by battle wounds. I dread the disgrace this will bring to my clan and my noble forefathers. And to find out what happens next, you'll have to buy the book. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good evening and welcome. And thank you for joining us at the New York Public Library. My name is Hiba Abid, the library's curator for Middle Eastern and Islamic collections. But first, let's hear it one more time for Negin Farsad and her reading of the story of Bizhan and Manijeh. It is a true honor to stand here at the library to celebrate a work that continues to resonate with generations of readers, artists, and scholars over centuries and vast geographies. I have been at the library for slightly over 2 years and had the opportunity to work with countless patrons. Yet, I'm constantly amazed by the steady number of requests to consult the copies of the Shahnameh from our collections by readers from different backgrounds, and some even reciting verses by heart in the reading room. Very few works from any literary tradition have such an appeal. 1,000 years ago, in the Persian province of Khorasan in northeastern Iran, a poet named Abul Qasim Ferdowsi devoted most of his adult life to creating one of the greatest literary masterpieces of all time, the Shahnameh, or Book of Kings. A sweeping epic of over 50,000 rhyming couplets, the longest poem ever written by one single author, weaving together mythology, heroism, political ethics, and history. It was often described as a mirror for princes, a literary genre that offered models of conduct and rulership that inspired generations of rulers. From the dawn of creation to the fall of the Sasanian Empire, it chronicles the triumphs and tragedies of legendary heroes like Rostam, tragic lovers like Bijan and Manijeh, and historical figures such as Alexander the Great, Iskandar in Persian, and the Sasanian kings Bahram Gur and Khusro Anushirvan. But the Shahnameh is more than a literary achievement. It is the cornerstone of Persian culture and identity. Written in Persian at a time when the language and traditions faced immense pressure, it became an act of cultural and linguistic preservation. Indeed, Ferdowsi's contribution to the development of the Persian language and literary tradition is often compared to that of Petrarch for Italian, Goethe for German, and Shakespeare's for the English-speaking world. Its influence spread far beyond Iran, resonating across Afghanistan, Central Asia, and South Asia, and translated into Arabic and Ottoman Turkish, and many other languages. These stories were passed down through generations, sometimes in grand public recitations performed by storytellers before enthralled audiences in palaces and remote villages, Other times in quiet, intimate readings and moments between parents and children. Here at the library, we are fortunate to hold 12 extraordinary illuminated manuscripts of the Shahnameh. They belong to a rich tradition of Islamic manuscript painting depicting heroic battles, supernatural creators, royal feasts, hunting scenes, and musicians and dancers, often around an enthroned ruler. They were created by master painters, illuminators, and calligraphers. These sumptuous works spared no expense, using pigments from natural mineral, including lapis lazuli, gold, and silver. 4 of them are on view tonight to the right, and they date from 1616 to 1873. And each copy reflects the epic's vast reach while bearing traces of the readers who engaged with it over centuries. So we have, again, to the right, a Safavid volume from Shiraz, an Ottoman translation, a very unique Ottoman translation from Istanbul, and Mughal copies from Delhi and Lahore. If you didn't have a chance to look at the display yet, it will still be up after the program, so feel free to go there again. The visual legacy of the Shahnameh is just as remarkable as its storytelling, from the exquisite illuminated manuscripts produced in royal courts to bold contemporary interpretations. Its influence spans across artistic traditions. Today, its legendary heroes continue to be reimagined in films, comic books, video games, and even in stunning theatrical productions such as Hamid Rahmanian and Melissa Hibbard's shadow puppet adaptation of Bijan and Manijeh, Song of the North, which will be performed starting March 15th at the New Victory Theatre. These reinterpretations prove that the Shahnameh remains as vibrant and influential as ever, fulfilling Ferdowsi's prophecy when he wrote, and I'm going to quote Ferdowsi, "I've laid the foundations of a lofty hall in verse that neither wind nor rain will harm. Lifetimes will pass over this book. Whoever has wisdom will be reciting it." I'm going to turn it over to tonight's panelists in 1 minute. First, I'd like to acknowledge that Live from NYPL is made possible by the continuing generosity of Celeste Bartos, Mahnaz Isbahani Bartos, and Adam Bartos, and of course, by all of you here and online. Thank you for that support, and now please join me in welcoming Aidan Flax-Clark, Ahmad Sadri, Melissa Hibbard, and Hamid Rahmanian.
We only have the one stare, so it takes like an awkward second to... Hello. How's everybody doing tonight? I mean, considering the crummy time we live, that was pretty enthusiastic.
And we don't see any faces, so...
But we know they're all beautiful. I'm Aidan. This is Hamid, Melissa, and Ahmad. And we're going to talk a little bit about this book. But first, wanted to thank Hiba for curating this incredible display and for telling you a little bit about our collections. As she said, if you didn't get a chance to see it beforehand, it will be up afterward. All of the books come from a collection here called the Spencer Collection, which is part of our Wallach division of arts, prints, and photographs. These books are so beautiful and rare and amazing, and you can look at them if you have an appropriate research project for free with your library card, which can't really happen almost anywhere else in the world. So the Wallach division, you should check them out. I also wanted to thank Negin for that amazing reading. I knew it was going to be incredible, and it was even better than imagined. And like everyone said, the show Song of the North, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, is opening at the New Victory Theatre soon, and it adapts the story that she read, Bizhan and Manijeh. So you get to learn more about that. And the last thing I do want to tell you, all of you hopefully saw that you have note cards sitting on your seats. These are for asking questions. So if you have questions, please write them down during the talk. I encourage you to write them down in the form of questions and not statements. And we'll collect them, and there's going to be one more reading tonight, which from Arian Moayed, and then we'll answer some of your questions at the end. These are all my housekeeping details. Thank you for putting up with me. I want to start actually with everyone. Hiba gave this really beautiful introduction to the book, but for people in the room who maybe are not familiar with it or who haven't read it, what do you tell people about Shahnameh? Why should they read it? What do you love about it? Hamid, I'm looking at you, so I'm going to start with you. Please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's the flame that Ferdowsi lit up 1,000 years ago, and we are now gathering around it and getting warmth from it. So yes, almost 1,000 years ago, a poet named Ferdowsi, he collected and put together a millennium-old epic tradition of Iranian plateaus into over 50,000 heroic verses. With his effort, we kept the Persian language alive. We also, and as a result, we kept the other languages around it, like Urdu or Pashto or the Kurdish, that became alive because of the effort that Ferdowsi did 1,000 years ago. He versifies these stories. And this is an epic that I think that's why actually interests me a lot. It's still in conversation with its own people. It's not archaic text. It's everyday life of Iranians. Shahnameh verses and characters play strong roles, either in the uprising or in the gathering for the Nowruz or anywhere. Shahnameh is still alive and vibrant. And even to this, recently, the uprising in Iran, the Woman, Life, Freedom, you will see a lot of verses of Shahnameh was recited on the street, or some of the characters in the Shahnameh was associated with the tyrants that rule in Iran. And also some of the story that you're going to read, Arian is reading, like Rudabeh and Zal, which is actually some of these characters, very personification of this character you can see in the new woman activist in Iran. So for me it was very important, and also this is the importance of the Shahnameh that we should cherish, and that's what we are here for last 17 years to make that happen for public. Yeah.
And Melissa, how were you introduced to Shahnameh, and how did you fall in love with it?
So Hamid and I have been working together for 25, 26 years. We're partners, and we've done all kinds of projects. We used to make films, and then we were at an event, and there was kind of the Shahnameh themed orchestra happening, and I picked up a copy of the Shahnameh just to read, and as I read it, I was just really amazed at how relatable the stories were. The universality of the stories and the heroes, the characters. I knew them, and I felt like, wow, why don't people know about these stories? I mean, it didn't make any sense. And just the way that Ferdowsi, he really has these very complicated characters, and there's just so much depth. And then you're really surprised by, for instance, the women in the story who are really strong and very tenacious and outgoing. So I felt like there was just so much to this book that was unexpected and a surprise, and I just felt like it needed a modernization. It needed to be told, and I wanted people to enjoy it the same way I had enjoyed it. So.
Which reminds me, the one thing I forgot to tell everyone, the most important thing of all, the book is for sale over there, and hopefully you're all going to buy a copy of it, right? And if not, you can get it with your library card, and obviously everyone has their library card. I'm not even going to ask. It's funny you say that. One of the things I loved about Negin's reading is that it felt so contemporary. You know, the story is very old, but, you know, when he's lying about how he got there, you know, that feels like anyone lying at any time ever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you can read any of these stories and understand and be connected to them in a really personal way, and in a way that you feel like, oh, this happens to me. The other thing that I think is really interesting is there are these seeds that you really know, like Romeo and Juliet, Rapunzel, what is it?
Faust.
I mean, there's so many stories that we in the West are so familiar with. I mean, even the Seven Kingdoms and Game of Thrones. You know there are seeds that have been planted in the Shahnameh 1,000 years ago that you can relate to. And I find that really particularly fascinating.
And Ahmad, were you raised reading this book? Has this been a part of your life? I get the impression that this is a book that is very much shared between parents and children in Iran. Is that?
Yes, actually, my first encounter with Shahnameh was the story that most Iranians know. Almost every Iranian knows this one story of Rostam and Sohrab, father and son, and it's the mirror image of Oedipus King. One of the big things for Western audiences is that these stories are every bit as amazing and grand as the Greek mythology put in the shape of those amazing plays in the high classical Athens. But you don't know that most Westerners don't know the end of it. Imagine if you were to read the Oedipus King not knowing what's going to happen at the end. This is why this Shahnameh is going to be an amazing book for most non-Iranians, because it has 4 grand tragedies and 4 beautiful love stories, and nothing about them is familiar. For instance, the Iranian girls are never wait for a knight in a shining armor to come and sweep them off their feet. They fall in love with these men. They go out there and set traps for them. And in the case of Bijan and Manijeh, slip something in their drink. We actually were asking ourselves, like, how do we relate this without being politically incorrect?
I mean, you didn't write it. It's not your fault.
So we really had to ask a lot of questions, because the stories go back, in one sense, 3,000 years, and what they were put into writing and then versified about 1,030 years ago or something like that. So some things really don't translate, but very few occasions. So anyway, for Western audiences, this is a box full of surprises, but also they basically somewhere between Shakespeare and Euripides. You know, you find all kinds of beautiful stories, shocking stories, and in the historical part that we have added now to the mythological and epic version that came out in 2013, we have a window that opens to the zeitgeist of the Sassanid Iranian period. This is historical, king after king. All of them are real people. And for the last, from the 3rd to the 7th century AD, you have the history of Iran, but it's really not history, because some romances in it and some legends are in it. But it is really a window, and that's how I translated it, as a window into the world, the ethical universe, the Welt Anschauung, the zeitgeist of the Sasanian Iran. And this is a source that is extremely valuable to historians, sociologists, psychologists. And so for a lot of reasons, Shahnameh is a collection of mythology, epic, and history. And so it is unique. We really don't have anything like this in world literature, and I've taught Greek literature and Indian and Chinese and Japanese epic stories and religious texts that are in the shape of stories. But Ferdowsi Shahnameh stands entirely on its own as a unique text.
I mean, nobody else, I think, has a demon king with snakes growing out of his shoulders that eat brains, right? It's my favorite story, the story of Zahak. And as Ahmad was hinting at, this book, it starts in myth and it moves into some version of actual history. I mean, a very made-up history, which I think is so incredible. And, you know, like I said, my favorite story, which is in the beginning, but I promise you I've read past it, is the story of Zahak, who is this demon king with snakes growing out of his shoulders. But what are some of your favorite stories from the book, the ones that if you're trying to sell someone on reading it, you go, oh, this is the thing you have to read?
I mean, all of it. but I think lately I'm being in love with the Bahram Chubin's stories in the historical part. Perhaps this is the most complex and complete and with full nuances in the historical part of the Shahnameh, and it has a it's incredible. It's as if like you don't need to even change anything. You can just make it into the series by itself. You don't need to add anything. It's there. It's very complex, and because in the first book that we did, it's only was include the mythological part and the epic part of the Shahnameh, and the reason was this part of the Shahnameh is all one family. And then we decided, okay, when we back a few years ago to start doing the historical part, we sort of were very confused because it's a lot of it's not one family, it's many families, and each chapter is own story, doesn't follow to the following the chapter, so it's very sort of each chapter has its own story. So then the Bahram Chubin's story is different. It's you have like 3 chapters that is sort of tell the story of this rebel knight that goes against the king of Iran, and also his sister, which is Gordiye, which is wow, this is like the most strongest woman of all characters in Shahnameh. She's truly you don't want to mess with Gordiye. This is just tell you. So that's lately I love that. But of course, we work on we made the theatrical production of the Zal and Rudabeh, the one that you're going to hear from Arian, and also we are currently making a story of the Bijan and Manijeh. But in the parentheses, we adopt the story for 21st century audience. So this is these stories it's the one you heard. It has kind of like an undertone of that, but we built another story on top of it within the world of the epic, which we can go in details shortly.
Did everyone get their Song of the North cards on their seats? And you're all buying tickets, right? Because we're going to come ask each of you individually.
Yeah, because formalistically, it's a very unique show. There are 483 puppets, to be exact. There are 208 animated backgrounds. There are 9 actors. Check this out. Over 2,300 cues performing 80 minutes. It took us 3 years to develop this production, so don't miss it. It's really something that you never seen before and you never seen after that, because I'm certainly not going to make another puppet show. This was too much.
And by the way, you're making time to be here while you're in the middle of getting it up to start in 3 days, and you look so relaxed.
It's all fake.
It's all acting. Yeah, today actually we had our first student show, and it's funny, it's a very funny story I'm going to tell you and come back to the book. But yesterday the administrations and all the production managers, they came to me and said, if tomorrow the kids come and didn't applause or cheers, don't be worried, because they're usually like that, they're shy, they're children. I said, okay. Oh, and I told my crew, I said, okay, if they don't applause, don't get weird, just bow and leave. And this screen comes at the end up, and we walked in, and it's just like screaming their head off. It was really, really delightful to see all these kids that are enjoying it. And New Victory is doing an amazing job, because they're actually putting out pamphlets about the story of Shahnameh, about the visual culture of Iran, the whole culture around it, which is something that we work 17 years till now to actually make these stories accessible. It's easy to follow. You don't need to, have a certain knowledge or literature, or know a lot of GRE words to actually follow this story. We're going to get into this. We were always Yes, it's a funny story. We'll get into that.
Well,
part.
why don't we get it? Let's learn about, because so you have this kind of ongoing Shahnameh project. It's not just the show. It's not just the book. There's so much, and you said, I think in your preface to this book, that you kind of at some point got engulfed by this book.
Yeah, we have 12 projects so far put together around Shahnameh.
Only 12?
And then there is 3 more.
Wow.
It's in production.
So what was, first of all, no, I was going to say, why did you get engulfed in the book? But I think we've learned pretty well why you're so engulfed in it.
Why not? It's so beautiful. It's really, you get into it, and it's this forest of beautiful trains, and in every place you go, there is something to sit down and ponder and enjoy. Really, it's really, I really highly recommend you guys to read. You know what? We were talking about this. When I started like 17 years ago, we had this idea of the Greek mythology comes to the educational system of the United States by Edith Hamilton in 1940s. So she actually made the Greek mythology accessible for masses. And before that, it was apparently for just higher level of education. You go to PhD and you study Greek mythology. That's what I'm told. But with the work of Edith Hamilton, Greek mythology now is everybody's mind. You know, it's a curriculum. Any schools, my kids, 13 years old, read Greek mythology. So we want to make that into, maybe for the next generation, know about Shahnameh, which is the text that is more relevant actually to today's current affairs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, round of applause, absolutely. And maybe I can bring up the slideshow, and you all can see it here. Everyone can see it up. So was this the first?
Yeah, before, this is like 2 years, 2 years after the show book. The first was a book. It was a foundation that we 3 of us worked together. And the book was, do you have a picture of the book? Let's go to the book and then.
Is this?
Illustrations. No, that's a pop-up book. But we'll get there because the book is the foundation of, yes, for instance, this. So what I did in the book, even before we start inviting Ahmad to join us, we wanted to make bring the visual culture of Iran into West. You know, this is something that has never been done before. So I inspired by Ferdowsi himself, because Ferdowsi, he collect these stories from didn't come up with the stories. He versified the stories that existed before, and he immortalize it, and it makes it people popularize it. So I thought maybe I should do this with the visual culture of Iran. So I collect and put together over 8,000 pieces of miniature and lithograph from late 14th century to mid 19th century, anywhere in the influenced by Persian paintings, from Mughal India to all the territory of Ottoman Empire. So based on these 8,000 pieces I put together, and I created these illustrations. So each is 500 pages of illustrations, and it took me around 11,000 hours of sitting. So each page you see is between 17 to 122 pieces, up to 33 manuscripts for one page. So each page you see, the illustrations are all unique, but all the pieces comes from somewhere in this vast visual culture and the geography of that.
Of which these books are an example, right?
Yes, but it's not just Shahnameh, anything. So anything, any miniatures, lithograph that from this period, and the geography, I put it together because I didn't want to have any Western elements comes to this. I want to just fully be from that region. And yeah, it's a lot to say. And then this became a foundation of the many projects that came later on. So I thought, what's the vehicle? What's the best vehicle to carry this visual culture? And I thought Shahnameh would be the best way to actually bring this visual culture to the masses. So that was actually the motive behind it at the first place. And then we started actually doing electronic version. We want to do this. And then I found this amazing publisher. I mean, I cooked for this amazing publisher, and he fell in love with me, with our cooking. His name was Jim Mars. He's no longer alive with us, but he came to my studio. I cooked for him, and he saw some of the illustration, and he said, okay, I don't want anything electronic. I want to have an actual book. And then okay, the actual pool requires to have a translation. So, and then we did some research, we work around, and then also we used to make movies and the character-based narrative movies. So we were talking with Melissa, I said, okay, we wanted to make these stories relatable because, you know, the characteristic of many epics that you're walking into it is so many characters, so many plots, you get lost. So if you just follow characters, you perhaps has a way to navigate through the story. So, and we did it in our filmmaking backgrounds. So we brought that into the play, and then we talked to Ahmad, we brought him on board, and based on these parameters, we start sort of going through the translating it and laying out. It took us 4 years to create this 500 book page illustrated edition. And then we can continue that. I don't want to be just have a monologue.
Well,
So
Ahmad, I'm curious, was this your first translation?
It wasn't my first translation. I had translated philosophical and theological Persian literature. I translated a collection of essays by Abdul Karim Surush, Reason, Freedom, and Democracy in Islam. And then I translated also a novel from Arabic into English by an Iraqi author, Ana Alladhi Ra'a in Arabic. I'm the one who saw, but it was translated as, I mean, the publisher chose the name Saddam City for it. And then after that, it was translated into Italian and Indonesian and many other languages. But it was a really one of the luckiest days of my life when I went to brunch at Hamid's studio. I invite all of you to go to brunch.
One by one, though. No, at the same time.
Hamid Rahmanian is a true Iranian, very hospitable, and he won't say no. So every single one of you is invited by me to go to his studio.
Yeah, I cook for my wedding, by the way.
Cooking. And so I went there, and I swear to God, like the first image that he showed me, just I was amazed. And it wasn't a big, like something that you saw here, just a couple of small, like characters. And I was floored by how authentic they looked and how modern they looked at the same time, and how clean they were. Because miniatures are kind of, they are hundreds of years old. Hamid was just telling us like what appears to be green in those manuscripts used to be silver. Silver oxidizes to green. So this
black,
is,
Black.
Black.
Yeah,
Black. Yes, yes. So Hamid has revived these old miniatures and modernized it, and the editor of the 2013 edition called it Shahnameh for the digital age. So, and then in my translation, one thing that I had was the ability to not only translate, but also listen to my own translation. So this was what we did. In translating such an old masterpiece is a very lonely and daunting task. But I was lucky because after translating, I'm not exaggerating, at least 12 and at most all the way to 30 times, the three of us sat and we read these texts. And I listened to my own translation and benefited from the comments of Hamid, who is a filmmaker, and he's interested in continuity. So this character speaks, and then we move on, and then Hamid says, wait a minute, what happened to that guy? He didn't exit, right? So the whole idea is that the three of us listen to it many, many times. And sometimes I would, when, for instance, Melissa was reading, I would say, stop, I don't like that part. I say, well, you translated it. I say, yes, but when I listen to it, I want to improve on it. So,
sorry to interrupt you, and so terribly with a broken microphone, but I wanted to know, what were the big fights? Because 3 people translating a book together sounds kind of terrible.
Yeah,
Were there any big fights, Melissa?
actually two things.
No comment.
Two things caused that there was no blood actually shed on the floor. Number one, I was in Chicago and Hamid was in New York. And number two, Melissa got in and said, "Shh, guys, the baby is asleep. You're waking up the baby." And so basically, she really got in. But we really had, I should say, terrible fights. But it was to improve the text. And for this reason, I really think anybody who translates Homer or Tale of Genji or Mahabharata, it should not be a lonely task. You should have collaborators with whom you read and discuss what you have translated. And if this text has been successful, I mean, the 2013 version is a bestseller and one of the 5 bestsellers in history in its price category. Our closest competitor is Madonna's book, Sex Book.
And Red Book of Carl Jung.
And Carl Jung on one side, and Madonna on the other side. So we are well placed. So if this has been popular, the text of it, of course, the images are stunning, but it's because we have fought over every line, and we have tried to remain. I'll say this and I'll stop. My task, my ideal is to prove Gustave Flaubert wrong. Gustave Flaubert is, as you know, a French 19th century novelist, and he said something that I always apologize when I relate this story, because there is some indigenous 19th century sexism and misogyny in it. Except last year I was at Sorbonne and I said, I'm not going to apologize to this audience because Gustave Flaubert is one of yours and you should own him. So, so this is what Gustave Flaubert said. A translation is like a woman. It's either beautiful or faithful. Terrible, right?
But this is beautiful and faithful.
Yeah, but I think the task, I set myself the task of proving Flaubert wrong, that a text should be a translation of an authentic text of any culture should be at once beautiful and faithful. Not that I achieve it in every single line. Sometimes something is lost in translation, but again, sometimes something is gained in translation. It's like luck has a lot to do with it. And so once I do that, then it's exposed to our regular sessions of agonic discussions, and eventually at the end, we find a text that we are all happy with. And I should say that Melissa had a great role in this. Sheila Camby called her our muse. And indeed she was. She really was the voice of reason and guided us in the right direction. I should really thank her. We should all thank her for her amazing role in this translation.
I was curious.
I want to say something very important, actually. At the beginning, I forgot. When we were trying to find translator, I thought, okay, all the English translation of Shahnameh is done by either British or American, just non-Iranian. There is no Shahnameh translation done by Iranian. So I thought, okay, we need someone to actually nuance the origin of the language and also the English. So Ahmad is Ahmad has a vast vocabulary ocean, which is sometimes you have to control it, because he come up with the word that you really don't know how even to pronounce it, but it has an English version. But so Ahmad is a perfect sort of candidate for this translation because he's Iranian. He knows also Arabic, which is, we can refer to the Al-Shahnameh, the Arabic Shahnameh, which is even the older than the Florence Shahnameh that we had. And so, and also the wealth of vocabulary that has to put things together. And for Melissa, because we're working together for a long time in the movies and the theater, she's an amazing storyteller. I mean, she knows, she has a sort of kind of like a eagle eye over the whole story. I'm more like a, what is the other eye? The frog eye?
Obsessive compulsive?
Yeah. I'm the
The
one with the
famous
OCDs.
OCD bird?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
No. Well, we are actually running up against time because Arian Moayed is going to come up in a minute and read our second selection from the book. I did not know we were going to cancel Gustave Flaubert tonight, so I'm glad. Should also say, if you want to see any of this incredible work, kingorama.com is where you can buy the older editions of the books, is that right? And see about the other productions?
You can find everything there.
Yeah, Kingorama is our brand. That's it's the entire Shahnameh project. It's there, so you can see many of the project. And you know, in the some of the some went through because we're just briefly. I'm going to touch that. So the book was very successful, the first one, and then we made the audiobook edition of the Shahnameh with the fully sound design, sound effect, many voices, a very theatrical audiobook. That's the only actually Shahnameh audiobook on in the market, and it's with the introduction of Francis Ford Coppola. And then we made pop-up books, we made the theatrical work that we saw, the first one, and then we made the Zal and Rudabeh, Feathers of Fire, Song of the North, you know, and this keep going. And we have Tragedy of Siyavush is coming up soon, and you know, and another pop-up book is in the production.
Well, how about while you're answering my next and last question, I'll show some of the other images so people can get a sense of what they look like. So we're going to hear from Arian in a second, who's going to read some of the Zal and Rudabeh story, which Hamid, you specifically asked to include, which I was thrilled to hear because it's fantastic. We're not going to get to hear all of it because it's very long, but can you tell people why you chose it, why you love it, why we're hearing it tonight?
So, Bizhan and Manizheh adaptation became Song of the North. Zal and Rudabeh adaptation became Feathers of Fire. And the reason I chose because the Feathers of Fire and Song of the North, Bijan and Manijeh, because Shahnameh is like a film series. Okay, so if you started the season 2, episode 5, you don't know what's happening. Who are these characters? But there are exceptions. There are few stories that you can stand alone. One of them is the story of Bijan and Manijeh, and one of them is the story of Zal and Rudabeh. And also, Zal and Rudabeh was our major theatrical production, which it's the reason that we chose that is this story has a lot of familiar plots that is for the Western audience is easy and accessible, like Romeo Juliet is there, Rapunzel is there, Jungle Book is there. So it's something when you start watching it, you say, oh, I can relate to this, as Melissa mentioned earlier. It's familiar to me. Oh, or the feud between the two lovers' family was exactly like Romeo and Juliet. But the only thing is also in Iranian love stories, the love is most always triumph. It's not something that is new apparently in the Western culture, like 19th century, I know. Because before that, all lovers are die and kill themselves or kill others or kill themselves. But in Persian mythology and epic, the love triumphs. So I thought these are beautiful story for a jumping board. So that's why I asked you to let's include that one. Yes.
I love it. Well, we're going to come back and answer some of your many questions, although, gosh, you have a lot, so I don't know how many we'll get to, but we'll do our best. But first, let's give it up for Arian Moayed.
So this is the story of Zal and Rudabeh, which comes from the early part of the Shahnameh. As it was mentioned, it's kind of too long to read in its entirety, so I'll read excerpts from it, and then I'll fill in the details, the parts that we need to skip over. Psalm was the most prominent knight of Iran. A musk-haired consort whose face was fresher than flower petals bore him a male heir. The newborn was happy and healthy, but his hair was white. Sam rushed to the woman's quarters. His spirit sank when he looked upon the face of his son. "My God, you are above wrongdoing," he said, lifting his head up to the heavens. "I offered you contrition for my sins. I hoped that you would punish me for my infractions. How am I going to face my noblemen when they ask me about this demon boy? They're going to mock me in public and gossip behind my back. How am I supposed to live with the shame?" Sam could not bear it, so he neglected his parental obligation to unstitingly care for his son and ordered his attendants to leave the helpless infant on a mountain. The attendants did as they were told, leaving the baby on the high, desolate rocks of a mountain. Zal just laid there on the cold stone, unaware that he had been abandoned. Naturally, he soon started to cry, but he was not alone. The mountain range was home to a magical bird, the simurgh, who was flying overhead when she spied the helpless, naked baby kicking up the dust below. She had taken flight to fetch food for her hungry hatchings, and when she scooped up Zal and brought him back to her nest, the chicks welcomed him with kindness and even shared their food. From that day on, the simurgh loved Zal as her own and raised him into adulthood. In time, travelers in the caravans that passed would tell stories about an agile, silver-headed young boy who leaped over the impossible peaks of the mountain. When the foundling had grown into a strong young man, Sam had a dream in which a stranger on a horse gave him good tidings that his son was alive. And upon waking, the knight called the wise men who could interpret dreams and asked their opinions of this vision. They were unanimous in the judgment that one of them expressed: "Beasts of the wild and fish of the sea care for their young. You alone have cast out your innocent child in breach of the rules of morality. Now you must repent to God, for he is our guide to what is good and what is bad." Well, Sam had to do something. The knight left the capital with a handful of his lieutenants, and they trekked up to the foot of the mountain range, overgrown with a thick blanket of intertwined trees. High above the valley, on the soaring rocks, was the nest of the mighty simurgh. Sam attempted to scale the cliff in vain and knelt to ask for divine assistance. Seeing the commotion below, the simurgh knew that the visitors had come for Zal and that it was time to bid farewell to her ward. "Your father has come to fetch you," she said. "Let me take you to your real family." But Zal was hesitant. "Are you sick of me? This nest is my home, and I'm proud to wear your plumes in my hair." "Well, soon you will be Iran's royal court," she said. "Soon you will have forgotten the nest, but don't worry. I've taken you under my wing and will never deny you my protection. Take these feathers of mine, burn one if you need help. I will come to your aid like a black cloud and take you back whenever you wish." So, Sam takes Zal back to the court of King Manijeh. The king's astrologers predicted he will be great and a heroic knight. Manijeh then sends Sam and Zal to the land of Zabul, which is part of his territory. It covers roughly Afghanistan to China, and on their way, Sam abandons his son again. Now Zal travels to Kabul and is welcome at a lavish banquet, and he's told that the king of Kabul has a beautiful daughter named Rudabeh. She is possessed of a skin whiter than ivory, he is told. Her hair is blacker than musk, her lips are redder than pomegranate seeds, and her dazzling eyes are framed by eyelashes that complete in blackness with a raven's feathers. Her eyebrows are shaped like a long bow at rest. Her breasts are the image of unripe pomegranates breaking through a smooth, silvery surface. The princess of Kabul is also very well spoken and refined. Rudabeh also learns of Zal. He is peerless among the knights of the world, says her father, Mehrab. Blessed with an elephant's strength and a lion's heart. He's generous on the throne and brave on the battlefield. He is a sprightly young fellow with a complexion that puts the flowers of a red bud tree to shame. His only flaw, if you might call it that, is that his hair is white. They fall in love with each other immediately, just from their descriptions. And eventually, they contrive to meet at the palace. Rudabeh went out to wait on the battlements. At long last, Zal appeared, and she watched him come to the castle walls. Then she addressed him, calling out, "Welcome, my gallant knight. You are as striking as my attendants described. Thank you for crossing the long, arduous road on foot to come here." Zal looked up at the exquisite form of Rudabeh on the high ramparts and thought she was like a rising sun peeking from an eastern mountain range. "I have spent many nights praying to be united with you," he said. "I have watched the moon go through its stations in the sky, dreaming about you. Now, at long last, I am hearing your sweet voice. But what good does it do us if I'm down here and you're high on the ramparts? Come, and let us find a way to be close. We've waited long enough for this tryst." Rudabeh untangled the long coils of her hair and dangled one of her long braids off the wall, inviting Zal to climb. Not dreaming of hurting his beloved in this manner, the dauntless young man looped his lariat around one of the teeth of the ramparts and scaled the forbidding 60-fathom-high wall with ease. At the top, Rudabeh kissed the ground and led her secret caller down the stairs to a room that she had prepared for their visit. Zal was stunned by the beauty of Rudabeh, as she was by his kingly radiance. They drank wine together, they kissed and caressed. They spent the night in this manner, but remained chaste. At the approach of dawn, Zal said, "Rudabeh, I know that neither Sam nor King Manijeh will approve of our union, but I pledge my life to your love, and I will get my father and the king to consent to our marriage." Rudabeh replied, "I too take God as my witness that you will be the one and only king." Well, as you can imagine, neither of their families were happy. When Rudabeh's father found out what's happening, he loses it and threatens to kill his own daughter. And Zal's right about his father. his father and King Manijeh. Rudabeh is descended from an evil Arabian king named Zahak, who once ruled the world. They fear that Rudabeh's family might use their marriage to steal some of the throne. So King Manijeh decides to send Sam to Kabul and destroy the whole place. When this intelligence reached Zal, he jumped on his horse and set off in a cloud of gloom to confront his father and declare, "The raging dragon Sam would first have to separate my head from my body." When Zal's standard appeared on the horizon, a company of elders from Sam's camp greeted him. They paid their respects, and one of the elders said, "Your father is offended by you. Offer your apologies, and don't be stubborn." "Well, don't let him start a quarrel," Zal replied. "Don't let him speak to me in anger, or I will shame him into tears." He then proceeded to Sam's camp, dismounted, kissed the ground, and addressed his father with tears in his eyes. "May the heroic Sam be content," Zal began. "The whole world benefits from your justice. I alone seem to have no share of it. I have committed no sin that I am aware of, unless being your son is a sin. You abandoned me at birth and denied me your love. You should have taken up your quarrel with God, for he created me the way that I am. The Creator saw to my care, restored me to the world, and gave me a soulmate in Kabul. I stood in the eastern front of Zabul and kept faith with you in hopes of one day being helpful to you. Now you bring me this gift? You come here with a ruthless army to wreck my house and my home? Is this the way you repay me for all my suffering? Now, look at me. Here I stand, exposed to your rage. Cut me in half if you want to. But I will not allow you to invade Kabul while I live." "You are right," Sam agreed, hanging his head. "Everything I did was unjust. But don't be hasty in your judgment. I am with you, not against you, in this matter. Let me remedy the situation by sending you to the king with a letter. If the Creator helps us, everything will be okay." Sam pleaded with the king to be kind to his son. "My son has come to me now, saying that he would rather be hanged than witness the invasion of Kabul. Well, what can I do? The lad is in love. Is it any wonder that a boy who grew up in the wilderness is smitten by the first girl who happens to cross his path? The ward of the bird is shedding a torrent of tears, enough to turn the dirt under his feet into a patch of mud. He is so miserable that passers-by take pity on him. I am sending you, the youthful lover, to you as a supplicant. Treat him with the benevolence that befits a king." Well, Zal took the letter and set off to King Manijeh's capital. A company of dignitaries came out to welcome the young king and ushered him into the palace. Zal prostrated himself before the king and remained in that position. Manijeh ordered his descendants to raise the young man and perfume his face. He bowed and presented Sam's letter. As the king read, his humor changed to joviality. "Well, I was deeply concerned about this marriage," he said, laughing. "But this pleasant letter from the old Sam has moved me. So despite my misgivings, I am prepared to grant you this favor. Go forth and marry your beloved. And there's a lot more to this story, but you have to buy the book now.
I think he should be an actor. That was incredible. Thank you so much. So we have a few great questions from the audience, and I'm just going to start with a very kind person who gave you a good log rolling question, Melissa. Where's the show traveling across the United States after this?
So we'll be in New York this week, and then we go to Seattle in May, and Vancouver. We'll kind of do a little Northwest tour in May. Then we're going to Saudi Arabia in October, which is kind of like incredible. We're trying to incorporate a trip in Dubai as well at the same time. We're going to be in Houston. We're going back to California and Pasadena for a couple of weeks in the fall. Idaho, Salt Lake City. Those are just a few of the places that we'll be heading in the next few months.
So when Hamid said he never wanted to do this again, he was very much lying.
Well, he's not planning on doing another show, but we'll be doing this for a while. And Iran, we would love to go to Iran, but we can't. I mean, it's not possible.
And everyone can find these shows, especially if you're watching online and you're in one of those places at kingorama.com, I imagine.
Yeah, our Feathers of Fire, we performed 112 times to over 100,000 audience. We have a recording of that on Kingorama, but this show, it's still, and thanks to New Victory, I think now is going to breathe new life into it. Hopefully, we're going to Japan. I want to go to Japan.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, here's a good one, because I've made this mistake, or maybe I haven't, I don't know. Someone asked, which is correct, the Shahnameh or just Shahnameh?
Shahnameh.
Yeah, it is. There is a famous drive in Chicago, Lake Shore Drive, also known as LSD. It used to be the Lake Shore Drive, now it is Lake Shore Drive. So these things are not carved in stone. So we decided to get rid of that. So it's Shahnameh.
And we also added the epic of the Persian kings to stand out in the Amazon, which actually with the success of that, there's another guy who's putting his book, some translation from early 20th century, as the same name, but we cannot actually get rid of it somehow. I don't know, but check out with the one who said Ahmad and Melissa and Hamid. So.
It's also, I have to say, it is a beautiful book. The illustrations inside, the calligraphy, there's some embossing on the cover,
yeah, we put a lot of love and passion and life into it. And I think as an artist, as a translator, the more you put life into something, a creation, it can actually resonate life out of that creation. I think this is very true in this project because tens of thousands of hours went through creation of this body of work, yeah.
Also, a lot of OCD, a lot of anal retentive artist and translator fanaticism, and so we really took it very seriously, and we hope that the result shows how much passion has gone into it.
Yeah, you're dealing with the national identity of a culture, and not any culture. It's Persian, Iranian culture. This is like an old civilization. So you have to be very careful, extra careful. Yeah.
Well, that's actually...
And also, I'm so sorry. This is because the Iran you know is a political Iran. Let's face it. You don't know anything about, I'm not saying, but you last 43 years, you only hear Iran through the prism of politics. Even the art is promoted in America is political art. And okay, this is not Iran. Iran is like a symphony. You have many instruments in this symphony, but you only choose to have, because of the political situation, you only hear one drum beat. And that's a very bad drum beat, actually. So we want to just shift the spotlight and also introduce more musical instrument into this.
Well, It's funny because I always, in that light, I always think about the book My Uncle Napoleon, which is very famous Persian humor novel. And it's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I understand, in Iran, it's hugely popular. It was turned into a TV show. It's a straight-up comedy about a messed-up family who all lives in a compound together. Not an ounce of politics in it, really. But this is not the kind of thing that I feel like anyone talks about coming from Iran, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a social commentary. You watch that show or read it, you feel that it's happening now, which is very amazing. Yeah.
It satirizes the conspiracy theories that were and are is still prevalent in Iran. And so the story is that everything is caused by hidden hands of the British. And the author was saying that somebody approached him and said, I think the British paid you to write this book to make fun of the fact that the British are actually controlling everything. So
now, this could be for any of you, but getting back to this point of the obligation you felt to the sort of the sense of history that the book represents, were there any parts that felt untranslatable? Is there anything you're just like, no, it's not?
It's interesting that Hamid points at me when it comes to this. Look, actually...
But you are the translator.
You're right, you're right.
That's a fair point.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Cultural values, norms, folkways, mores change with time. Those of us who are of a certain age, I'm pointing at myself, and those in the audience who can match me in being ancient, we all know we don't really have to be that ancient. We didn't think the way we do today as we did 50 years ago. About a lot of the things that now are normal, they were really unspeakable decades ago. Now we are talking a book that was finished on March 8, 1010. We cannot expect that everything in that book, I gave you one example of Manijeh putting some soporific drug in Bijan's drink. At the time it was written, nobody would even notice this as something untoward. But because of our environment, now that has become sensitive. You cannot expect that a book that is more than 1,000 years old, we would not have some things that would not appear like it is untranslatable. There are some general judgments about Jews, Christians, and Mazdakis, and various religious groups, various ethnic groups, Arabs, Turks, Kurds, Baluchis, and things like that. You can't expect that a book written so long ago to conform with all of our mores today. But I would say this, these are very few and far between, extremely rare. And we have not pulled any punches. We have tried to remain very honest with this. Treatment of women. Of course, there are slave girls in this book, and some of them are mistreated. We have not tried to whitewash those parts. We want to be honest with the text that is so old. But having said that, there are certain parts of this book that are 1,000 years ahead of their time. You're going to see the theology of Ferdowsi is extremely modern. It goes right along with apophatic theology of the most advanced theologians today. So, and respecting, the enemy. It is not white hats and black hats. It's not that all Iranian kings are good and all Turanian kings are evil. There are some Iranian kings who are utter idiots. And there are some Turanian heroes that are so pure in their own ideas and in their own nationality that when they are killed in war, the Iranian king comes and weeps for them, mourns the enemies falling in battle. So for all of these, I mean, if it was not like this, Shahnameh would not belong to the world. I am proud of Shahnameh exactly because of its universality, exactly because it treats the enemy and the Iranians, whoever they are, with fairness. So yes, there are some parts that were hard to translate. For example, when Bahram Gur kills one of her slave girls, and I remember that we really were. It's one of those things that we didn't know how to talk about it. One way of doing it, and actually I should confess that it was my inclination to elide it, just to brush it on the rug. And Melissa said, no, we don't want to whitewash the Shahnameh. And so basically everything is there, good, bad, and the ugly, but in all fairness, and I'm not saying this because I have any, partiality to Ferdowsi, that of course I do, but the reason I'm saying this is that Shahnameh is really a unique text, a universal text that is extremely fair to various nationalities and ethnic groups and religious groups and gender differences, but it is not without its flaws, and it wouldn't make any sense if it were completely going along with our culture today. So we have tried to remain honest and convey the spirit of Shahnameh, and so the critics can debate it and go on.
And of course, all of you can judge because you're all going to purchase the book. And that is about all we have time for.
And also, the story of Bizhan and Manizheh, I tell you another example, because at the beginning of the Bijan and Manizheh story is a boar-infested area in the North Territory, so Bijan has to go kill all the boars. So when we start adapting the story for the play, so we can't really at the beginning of the show the protagonist go kill all the animals. Imagine all the kids and all the human animal rights people, they come with the cards in the front of the theater houses. So we actually adopted the story from different part of the Shahnameh or mythology or epic tradition of even different part of Iran.
So no boars were murdered in the making
of
the show.
No, but you come see it.
worry.
I changed the, and it's actually, it has a very interesting parallel with what's happened to the Bijan. Also, the Manijeh, I also use some parts in the Bahram Chubinez part at the end of the show, the Shahnameh, brought it into the story, and also brought different part of the story of Akvan into the Song of the North. But when you come and you see it, we make it very accessible.
So
boars die in Shahnameh,
all right.
in translation, not in this show. Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. But give it up for Hamid Rahmanian, Melissa Hibbard, and Ahmad Sadri. The display that Hiba curated is still up in the back. Please check it out. Please purchase copies here. Are you guys signing copies afterward?